following video is part 3 of a series of videos in which I'll be attempting to analyze the game off, specifically the writing of the game, the general story, reoccurring themes, etc. If you have not seen parts 1 or 2, I would strongly recommend viewing them before continuing with this video. They will be linked down below in the description. Right off the bat, the atmosphere of Zone 3 is immediately established with what is probably the most oppressive introduction to any zone so far. Our first sight upon entering the proper part of the zone is a gigantic looming factory with giant chimneys spewing smoke into the air. There's a tramway that you can use to take you to different parts of the factory, however, pretty much all of the other areas are blocked off for now. By the way, I apologize for any glitches in the footage, my capture card was being a little weird. Area 1 has a large cafeteria area where you have to use a paper with a bunch of stamps on it in order to navigate. There's a specific order you have to go on the tiles in, and if you go in the wrong order, you'll immediately get an enemy encounter, followed by you getting booted out of the room. Just like in Zone 2, the battle music here has changed again, except it's even more warped than it was previously, to the point where now it's almost unrecognizable. It's all slow, distorted, the pitch is off. Each part of the song just sort of stumbles over into the next one. The music almost sounds like it's seconds away from completely collapsing and falling apart. And it makes sense why too, because previously there were just some hints that something wasn't right with the mission, but by this point in the game, it's undeniable that things are not as they should be. There's something deeply insidious that the batter is planning, and the music changing like this reflects that gradual realization. There's a bunch of notes in the factory left behind for the workers as well, but there's something weird about them. They talk about things like not being allowed to have dessert if they don't behave, always making their beds at night. The messages give off the vibe of a parental figure talking down to a young child, not a boss addressing their workers. We can also meet Zachary in here, who's now wearing a mask of a cat instead of a frog. He pretends to be the judge at first before giving up on the act when the batter isn't being fooled. Apparently the judge hasn't been doing too great lately, and for the first time we actually hear what the judge's real first name is. Pablo. Nearby we can pick up our third and final add-on Epsilon. Epsilon as an add-on isn't all that useful. Mostly what it specializes in is either buffing one of the other party members or using a specific competence that hits all enemies at once, albeit not with much impact. And in the status menu, Epsilon's title is Holy Spirit. That means that add-ons Alpha, Omega, and Epsilon form the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Believe me, this allusion made to the Holy Trinity within Christianity will make sense later on. For now, let's just continue with Zone 3. Over in one of the dormitories, you can find a bunch of workers in there who are talking about how the specters apparently aren't dangerous and nobody's here to hurt anybody. This provides a complete contrast between the workers of the factory and the Elson in every other zone. Unlike the other zones, the Elson here don't show any signs of fear towards the specters. And for the first time in the whole game, we see a couple of specters actually killing somebody. This confirms that to an extent, a lot of the specters are in fact dangerous to a lot of people. However, I also think it's interesting that the batter doesn't step in to stop them until after they've killed the person. It's almost like the batter knew it was going to happen but waited anyway, like he was waiting for a reason to try and kill the specters. After this, you're tasked by Zachary to go to Area 2, where once again you meet up with him and he makes a lot of really funny meta comments. Area 2 is also now accessible for the player. here. There's a lot of codes you have to input via the switches, and these are decent enough puzzles. There's also a password you have to guess based on the name of one of the enemies you can encounter, and that's nice. It's probably the only time I've actually been thankful for random enemy encounters in an RPG, I gotta be honest. Doing all of this gives you access to a vault containing a bunch of sugar, the fifth artificial element mentioned earlier in the books from Zone 2. Spectres have also gotten into the vault, but unlike before, the Elsen here are angry. They're more concerned with the idea of their sugar being taken than their own lives. And in a pretty unprecedented act for the Elsen, they fight back against the Spectres and defeat them, and then they assume the Batter is here to take their sugar as well and start fighting the Batter. Up to this point in the zone, the Elsen and their dialogue have shown an almost obsessive level of reverence for this sugar, and now we're seeing just how violent they get when they feel like their supply is about to be taken away from them. I think community member Folly, when she got to this part of Zone 3, put it best.
This is just crack.
By the way, shout out to Folly herself for voicing that for me. I would say that Folly's assessment of this is pretty accurate because, just like mentioned before in the book about the Guardians, this sugar seems to have a highly addictive quality to it. This is especially concerning since this is the reward the workers get for their work. This sugar essentially takes the place of a salary for these workers. The addictive quality of it keeps them coming back too for their jobs in hopes of just getting more, getting their next hit. And, just like we've noticed multiple times now, this is very likely a commentary on the consequences of industry. Now, assuming the person watching this is employed, just try to imagine your job. Do you like your job? Do you go in purely because you enjoy what you're doing? If that's the case, then honestly, good for you. That sounds really awesome. But for most people, well, most people don't even like doing their work. For the vast majority of people, they only really go to their jobs because of the pay they get. The money keeps them coming back, and just like how the Elsen have become with the sugar, the workers become dependent on the money they receive from their jobs. Even if they hate their jobs, they can't help but keep coming back. They can't quit, because if they quit, they'll lose their money, and if they lose their money, things will go really bad for them. Once again, just like how the Elsen in Zone 3 can't quit their jobs or else they'll lose their access to the sugar. Regardless of whether it's an offs world or the real world, the enticing prospect of that little reward for your hard work keeps people coming back. The reward remains on their mind and they would do anything for it, almost to the point of obsession at points. Area 3 is a lot more simplistic than the other two. It starts off with you climbing to the top of one of the factory's big chimneys that spews out smoke. From there, the Batter jumps down. There's a short little minigame where basically you have to direct the Batter to collect 10 add-ons within about a minute. Otherwise, he'll die in a big, violent crash. Make sure you don't touch any specters that appear though. That takes away some of your health. It's a neat little minigame, although I will say it can definitely be a bit finicky at points, and sometimes it just doesn't really work that properly. I do really like the use of a 3D environment, however, as the Batter falls, because that's not really seen anywhere else in the game. I also like just how silly the whole vibe of this thing is. It feels very out of place with Zone 3, but I love it for that exact reason. Down at the bottom of the chimney, there's a furnace with bloodied corpses being shoveled inside. Then, the worker talks to us, and he finally gives us the details of this fifth artificial element, sugar. Over here, in the sugar ovens of Vesper, they take the corpses of the deceased and shovel them into the furnace. Then the vapor is transmitted through pipes where it's converted into sugar. It's the fifth artificial element, and in this Elsen's words, the most important, because without sugar, everybody would lose their minds. Or so he would have you believe. Because keep in mind, Zone 3 is the only zone in the entire game to have sugar in it. All of the other zones are doing completely fine without any sugar, yet Zone 3, everybody's dependent on it, and it's this specific interaction that confirms exactly what this sugar is. It's not a fifth artificial element. Hell, it's not even an element at all. It's a drug. And just like any drug, being deprived of it after getting addicted has serious consequences, and on the way to Area 4 with Zachary, you get to see exactly what I mean.
Meow.
Someone is on the tracks. They seem completely confused, aimlessly wandering around, and as we can see, this person has been without sugar for a long time, and now they're beginning to have withdrawals. During the whole fight with them, they never even attack once. Their only move is calling out for help. Despite this, though, the batter still purifies him as though he were a violent threat. Realistically, the batter could have just moved him off the tracks, but instead, he decides killing him is the best option. Once again, the batter shows a complete lack of empathy here, only caring about his goals, and once again, he's quick to jump to violence in order to get things done. Nothing story relevant really happens in Area 4 of the factory, but once you get past all the hallways filled with sugar-deprived employees, you'll finally be able to enter the director's office and meet the guardian of this zone. The same man who created sugar as the fifth artificial element and the one who is behind this entire factory, Enoch. With this interaction, we learn a lot of things about the world of Awe. First, we finally get an answer as to what exactly a Guardian is. We already had an idea in Zone 2, but here, all of the questions we had as to what a Guardian is finally get answered. They're essentially the creators of each zone, akin to gods in a way. And we also learn what exactly the Spectres are. They're not inherently evil, they're the vengeful spirits of the dead. Even though he seems weirdly content with the specters roaming around his factory, Enoch straight up confirms that he's not involved with them in any way. Yet despite this, the batter still insists on purifying him. Enoch does definitely seem to have a bit of an ego with how much he likes the metaphor of being like a god, but the batter also clearly has an ego. The batter has likened himself at this point several times to a savior or righteous figure. Regardless though, Enoch refuses to just take all of this, and Enoch also delivers one of the best lines in the entire game. I'm sorry, just how is this a real line that somebody wrote for this game? Enoch says before the fight, and I quote, "No matter your physical strength, you can't withstand my excess weight." Enoch drags you into a fight with him, but unlike other bosses in the game, this one is straight up impossible to win. Your attacks don't even dent his health bar. And for once, the batter actually encourages you to flee the battle. And indeed, that's the only way you can actually progress through this. Just when you're leaving though, Enoch suddenly crashes through the wall and starts giving chase to the batter. Here you have to outrun Enoch or else he'll drag you back into the fight that you can't win and you'll have to flee again. It's a pretty neat little section, although it is really easy, especially since if you just flee the battle again after getting caught, you'll immediately be at the end of the section. Going back into the hallways you came from, though, shows that the whole zone is already becoming purified. This is really strange, seeing as we haven't killed the Guardian yet somehow the zone's still entering its pure state. And just as you're about to escape on the tramway, Enoch catches up to you. Now the true boss fight against Enoch begins. Unlike the other bosses in the game, Enoch's boss fight is fought with a vertical perspective. It even further emphasizes just how gigantic Enoch is right now compared to the batter and the add-ons. Enoch's fight works a little bit differently than some of the other bosses, mainly his speed. He becomes really aggressive when he's getting serious, but there are moments where he tires out and doesn't attack for a few turns. Overall, it's not a very complex fight, and it's pretty easy to figure out, but I do like this addition. I'm also a really huge fan of the perspective change because, once again, it shows just how powerful Enoch is compared to the batter. Narratively, it's probably the weakest fight in the game, but that's honestly okay with me. Enoch serves his purpose fine enough. And as per usual, it's really, really satisfying to finally take him down. Enoch is defeated, but now we know what will happen. Because the zone has been deprived of its guardian, it's destined to fade away into the white, pristine nothingness we've seen many times. Without a guardian, a zone is no longer able to properly exist. There's no intermission with the child this time, but before we enter the final area, maybe it's best we stop by Zone 0 again. Zone 0 doesn't really have a bunch of immediate changes. The only one that sticks out straight away is that Zachary is now here in place of the judge. However, that's only at the surface, because when you go into the room where you got the final code for the area originally, there's something new just underneath it. This character here is named Sugar. She's perhaps the most enigmatic character in the entire game because we know basically nothing about her. Trying to analyze her during the fight just results in a bunch of question marks. Based on her appearance, it seems like she's been trapped under Zone 0 for a long while. She's also by far the hardest boss in the game. Granted, she's completely optional, but she's still pretty challenging. I've gotta admit though, I like the increase in challenge. It feels really fun and I just really like this fight. Her high level of aggression and the dummies she starts off with that provide aid to her actually lend a great deal of strategy into this fight. I still prefer Japhet a little bit more, but I can't deny this fight is really good. Sugar, as her name suggests, seems to be infatuated with the same substance. There's piles of it everywhere inside her room, and she seems to be in some sort of high off of it. She seems to be in extreme agony, but she's using the sugar to disassociate from it. The whole vibe of this encounter just gives off the feeling that this is something you are not supposed to see at all. It's made even more unsettling given that, again, we never learn anything about her really. Who she is, how she got here, why she's here, all of it's just an unsolved mystery. When she dies too, she tells the batter to talk to Zachary, and all Zachary says after this is just that maybe it's better like that. And with that, we're left scratching our heads wondering what the hell we just experienced. I'm really not kidding when I say this is probably the strangest and most unsettling fight in the entire game. And when it's over, we're left with far, far more questions than we have answers. But now that we've talked about the secret boss, I guess it's time to finally move on to the last area. The place we've been trying to reach the entire game, the place where the Queen resides, and where the Batter's mission will finally be completed. It's time to enter the room. Chapter 5: The Room. At first, the zone is completely empty, save for one small area, a child's bedroom. On the calendar, it says February 11th. There's not much in here, so your first instinct should be to walk back out. But when you walk back out, all of the chairs have been rearranged into a face. Going back in shows a new note left by a child. He says he doesn't like this place very much, but that he's glad his father is there with him. We also learn that this child is apparently sick and is on medication for whatever their illness is. Going back to the start and then re-entering shows a whole hallway filled with a bunch of enemies you have to fight. They go down fairly easily by this point. They don't really put up much of a fight. Another note from this child is left behind. It only says that he doesn't like the pills, nothing more. There's a new doorway in the room. Going into it takes you into a sketched out hallway. No matter how many times you reach the end of this hallway, it'll loop forever. The way you have to proceed is by going back. There's now dialogue from this child, saying that he and his father will go outside to play tomorrow. Chapter 4: I Had 3 Friends. The layout has been reorganized yet again. The date on the calendar has changed to June 3rd. The sketched out hallway we were in previously that never ended seems to have finally stabilized itself, and now the door leads somewhere. A place where we're given a selection on where to go. We're given a choice: visit the room, the tall mister, the bird, or the big mister. Clicking on any of the 3 people takes you to a new area, one that looks completely unlike anything else in the game. In each one, you can find one of the 3 guardians. The tall mister is Deaden, the bird is Japhet, and the big mister is Enoch. Yet despite that, none of them act normal. They act completely different to how they did when we met them. Deaden especially is a huge example of this. Unlike earlier where he was a complete jerk to everybody, here he's kind, patient, almost father-like in the way he treats the batter. I say the batter, but realistically, none of them seem to actually be addressing the batter. Instead, they seem like they're talking to someone else, a small child. When you solve the area's puzzle, each of the 3 talk about how they're going to design their separate zones. This confirms that this has to be in the past, before each of them became guardians. If this was the batter's past, then surely he'd recognize at least one of these 3, but no. Each and every time he met one of the guardians before this, he had to be introduced to them. As such, there's only one explanation. We're witnessing the memories of somebody else. Judging by the state of the outside world, it seems like something definitely has to have happened here. Something catastrophic. Either way, it's very obvious that whoever once lived in this world doesn't anymore. You might still be questioning who exactly we're playing as in these memories, but when we advance to the next chapter, we got that question answered for us precisely. We were witnessing the memories of the same young child leaving notes for us. Additionally, it seems that since then, his father abandoned him, but the child clearly already had a strained relationship with his father because he apparently didn't like him anyways. We also learn one piece of critical information. The add-ons are parallels for the three Guardians. And seeing as the Guardians are basically this world's equivalent of gods, it only makes sense that the add-ons would embody the Holy Trinity. Chapter 3: The World in a Window. We're presented immediately with a fake-out title screen. There are 3 save files, each of which function as different parts of the level. In the first file, the child leaves a note behind saying about how his dad gave him a music box. The time on the calendar is once again different. This time, it's March 18th. The second save file is filled with shadowy figures walking around with us. Their silhouettes bear a striking resemblance to the batter. This could be other people who got here before we did, or maybe they could even be the staff at the hospital which this child was staying in. Additionally, the bedroom looks like a cell, likely reflecting how the child viewed this room. He felt trapped, unable to leave his bed because of his illness. The third save file has almost everything upside down at first, probably representing just how confusing this period was for this young child. Nothing made sense for this child. After all, how would it make sense for him when he was so young and stricken with such a bad illness? At the end, we get a continuation of one of the notes from this child. His father gave him a comic, but he wants to go out and play. He hates this place, but hopefully his mother will pick him up. Chapter 2: Boxer's Adventures. The zone is completely empty now, save for one old book. Interacting with it reveals that it's an old comic. The batter has a noticeable change in demeanor and he prompts you on whether or not you want to read it. In order to progress, you have to say yes. So yeah, this is the event of the comic. The ball man kidnaps the boxer's girlfriend and fills the city with his clones, and now it's up to the boxer to clear out all the clones. I think it's a little interesting here how the ball man is the villain, and the ball man is one of only 2 baseball-themed characters in the game, the other being the batter. Wonder if that's saying something. The whole segment is really easy and can be done in basically a few minutes because of just how overpowered the boxer is, but regardless, at the end it's implied the boxer lost and was overwhelmed by the clones. Before we can read the rest of the comic though, the batter stops us and says that this is really stupid. Notably though, this doesn't seem to be a genuine reaction from him. And in a few moments, I think it'll make sense why. We get our final piece of dialogue from this child who says that today, his mother finally came and picked him up. We then meet Zachary for the last time, and we're told that the save point behind us is the last one. And so, after doing all of your shopping and saving your game, you finally proceed to the last stretch of Off. Chapter 1: The Queen. With this, multiple revelations that finally come full circle and complete our understanding of the story of Off. First, it's revealed that the Queen and the Batter had a history together, and it's very evident from the tone of the Batter's dialogue and how the Queen treats him that the two have a lot of resentment towards each other. Second, this child was the one who brought the Queen into the world, but also the Batter into the world. This implies that the Batter and the Queen are both the parents of this child that brought them into the world, and thus, the father is the Queen's son, and that means that this is both the son and the father of the Batter as well. The entire time, the Batter was seeking to purify the world because in his eyes, the Queen failed at her job to take care of their child. And so, with this conversation, I believe that I can finally piece together what I interpret the story of Off to be. Everything begins in February. The child is diagnosed with a terminal illness, and as such, he is bedridden in the hospital. His mother is seemingly not in the picture at this moment, and so it falls on his father to watch after him in the hospital. His father keeps him company, spending time with him, gifting him comic books, and making sure he took his medication. But evidently, not all was well with this father, and so the child had resentment towards him, and eventually, the father left, never to come back again, leaving the child all alone with neither of his parents in the hospital. Eventually, some sort of drastic event must have happened to the world, likely some sort of nuclear war, judging by the sky. Somehow, the child ended up being the one survivor of this catastrophe, and so he decided to create new parents for himself. The first was the Queen, the mother figure who never visited him in the hospital, the one who would go on to govern the world of Off. His father, however, he still had a great deal of resentment towards, and so he created the Batter, modeled after the villain from the father's favorite comic. It's then that the child also created the three guardians, Dedan, Japhet, and Enoch. Each of the three served as his best friends and guardians, and as such, the title was passed down to them as Guardians. The Queen began making preparations for the new world, but the Batter, just like the father before him, left the child. I don't really believe that the Batter and the previous father are the same person, but it is evident that the Batter seems to have at least some memories of the previous father, explaining the change in his demeanor around the comic. He doesn't think it's stupid. He's starting to get sentimental, remembering the past life of the previous father, spending time with his child. The Batter refuses to let us continue reading because, well, if he gets too sentimental, he won't be able to complete his mission. At first, all was well in the three zones. Everything was pretty much a utopia, but over time, each of the three guardians were led astray on their own paths. They became jaded, and the world started to become a dystopia. The Queen, however, never did anything about this, instead choosing to remain by her child's side over in the room. The Batter, though, didn't see it that way. The way the Batter saw it, the Queen failed at her duty, and in his eyes, there was no hope left for the world of Off by this point. He grew more and more apathetic and indifferent, and so, the Batter begins in Zone 0, being summoned there from the nothingness. Then we, the player, are assigned to him, and after meeting with the judge, the Batter begins his journey of purification of the world. At first, it seems that this is a noble goal, making the world a better place for everybody, but over time, it becomes clearer and clearer what the true goal of this mission is. Not salvation, destruction. And after each of the Guardians fall, the Batter finally reaches his former lover, at the very last bastion of life in this dying world. And so, the fight against the Queen, Vader Aloha, begins. Except it's clear that this isn't even really a fight. It's a cold-blooded murder. It's tragic, too. These two beings who were supposed to love each other, who were supposed to both parent their child that brought them into this world, now fighting each other to the death in the broken remains of a world that once was, and never can be again. The Queen makes it clear during this fight just how much she despises the batter. Every time she attacks, she always says something to him. I am gravely disappointed. No dessert for you. There is nothing but the void after me. He loves you not. You don't even know his first name. By this point, the Queen goes down just like pretty much any other boss fight. While gameplay-wise it's not much special, in terms of story, it's absolutely excellent. It's genuinely at a similar level as Japhet in terms of how much I love the narrative behind this fight. This is what the entire game has been leading up to, and now that we know the context, it makes it that much more of a tragedy. And regardless of who wins, everything outside of the room has already been destroyed. And given just how powerful the batter has become by this point, it's little wonder who eventually wins this conflict. In her dying moments, the Queen seemingly starts reliving a memory from before the batter initially left. She proclaims that the child has his eyes, but the batter says they are full of fear. Chapter 0: The Batter. You find yourself in a familiar red area, and inside one of the rooms is the same child we've seen during the intermissions. The same child who brought the batter and the Queen into existence. Hugo, a little boy, weak to plastic, weak to metal, weak to smoke, weak to meat, despite the fact that he is only a small child, and despite the fact that he is the batter's own son, you cannot progress any further until he's been purified. The batter once again has a huge change in demeanor before the fight, even after everything the batter's done. Even though we've seen by this point just how much empathy he lacks in a lot of cases, even despite all of that, Hugo is still his son, and no matter what, he is bound to have at least some fatherly instincts left in him, at least some level of love for his child. The batter does not want to purify Hugo, but in order to see his mission through to the end, he has to. The world has been purified. Now, there is truly nothing left. The mission is almost over. There's just one thing left to do. But before the batter can achieve the end of his mission, one familiar face returns yet again. The judge finally returns, but this time his tone is different. He shuns you for your actions. Not the batter, you, the player. Because even though the batter is the one who technically did all of this, you helped him. You guided the batter. You are just as responsible. The batter could not have accomplished this without you, and deep down, you know that. The mission was never about the specters. It was never about making the world more pure. The mission was always about the destruction of the world, and you helped the person responsible to accomplish it every step of the way. The judge offers you one final choice. You can either repent for the sins you've committed and join the judge in trying to stop the batter, or you can stand by the original mission and join the batter to defeat the judge. Ultimately, your choice doesn't even matter. The entire world is already lost. But you know what? I don't even care. We just watched this man murder his own child. We watched him destroy the entire world. There's nothing left now. If there's at least one thing I can do right, then damn it, I want this man to die. And so, with the judge by your side, you begin the final boss fight against the bad batter. Just like how everybody else looked to the batter in the battle menu, the batter, from the judge's perspective, resembles a horrific monster. Except, in this instance, perhaps it's what the batter really is. Just under the surface, he may not look like a monster normally, but in his soul, that's always what he's been. The battle against the batter usually varies in terms of difficulty. It largely depends on how powerful you made the batter throughout the course of your playthrough, what competences you unlocked, the equipment you gave to him, etc. However, with the judge's powerful competences, it's often child's play. And ultimately, no matter how much of a fight the batter puts up at this point, no shield can ever block the sword of justice. Hence, nothing remains except for our regrets. The credits roll as the judge wanders alone through the purified world. No other life forms in sight. But this is not the true ending. In the true ending, you, the player, stick by the mission you were given at the start of the game. And so, you and the batter once again take up arms to purify one more creature. And this time, it's the very same one who guided you at the start of the game, none other than the judge, Pablo, himself. The judge does everything in his power in order to fight back against the batter during this fight, but ultimately, he's outmatched. The batter is too powerful by this point, him and his 3 add-ons. By this point, the batter has put so much work into finally accomplishing his mission, and now there's nothing he won't do to finally see it through to the end. The judge is the last thing standing between the batter and home base, and no matter how powerful the judge may be, he is ultimately no match for the Purifier, the very same being that brought this world to its knees. The switch is currently on. The switch is now off. With the game's dying breath, the purpose of the title is finally revealed. This was what the true goal of the mission was all along, finally bringing the world to an end, and turning the switch keeping it together off. The credits then roll over a black background as the world goes permanently dark, and the story of Off reaches its end. This game truly was an unforgettable experience for me. Even as I end this video, there's just so much more I want to say but wouldn't really be fitting for a YouTube video. Even though the game is really short, only taking about 4 to 6 hours to beat, it still leaves such an impact on me that, honestly, I don't think I'm ever going to forget it. Even if it's not my #1 favorite game of all time or anything, it truly is an experience unlike anything else I've ever experienced before. The way that all of the themes were implemented into the writing, the way the gradual realization built up that you were never the hero of the story, the way Mortis Ghost developed this beautifully dystopian and surreal world, everything about this game is just, to put it simply, art. Even if it's not perfect, and it does definitely have flaws, you can tell Mortis Ghost put his heart into this. He put his soul into every single line of dialogue in this game. This game truly is, in my opinion, a bizarre masterpiece.
You must take your share of trouble. Face it and don't complain. For if you want the rainbow, you must have the rain. Happiness comes double after a